So we're going to talk about managing relationships, managing difficult things that may happen on your board, but we're going to start off with talking about how to run a clicker. I had this working earlier.
It's Jennifer's fault. She came in.
Now I want you to know some God's truth. I came in here at 1 o'clock and this worked. Look at there. All right. So we're going to start off by looking at all of our districts. And some of you have seen these slides before, and I'm not going to apologize for it because I think we have to build a foundation and make sure we're all on the same plane when we talk about relationships at the board level. Okay. So let's talk about how did you get your authority to run the organization that you have? Well, first of all, the state of Oregon said, we're going to establish various types of local governments. Lobbyists got together and senators and representatives, and they've passed different legislations over the years that enables us to be here. We have ORS 198 that is the overall umbrella legislation that states says, here's how you form, here's how you can dissolve, here's how you can merge and consolidate. And then you have the individual enabling legislation that affects your district. And the example I have up here is ORS 478, which is rural fire districts. 777 is ports, I believe. How about Park and Rec? What's yours? What was it? 266. You know why I asked that? That was a test for Don. He passed. Good job. But hopefully all of you know what legislation, what ORS allows your district to function at the level, at a certain level and what it's required to do. So that's where the authority comes from. The authority comes from the state, okay? Now that there are other statutes that allow you to do things, to conduct elections, to pass bonds, to do the bond thing, to enter into contracts. There's some administrative rules that state departments give you for different authorities. Each type of district may have different rules that apply to them. We all have OSHA, of course, but under the fire side, the state fire marshal gives some authority to fire districts. And there could be an ordinance, either an ordinance that you passed or an ordinance that a city or county passed that gives you some authority, not you personally, but the district authority, okay? It's also implied in that enabling legislation that you have the power, your district has the power to purchase supplies, enter into, employ staff, enter into contracts, do those incidental things that you need to do in order for your district to function, okay? So that district has the authority to do that. The district then has, all of our districts, all of the special districts already have some type of governing board, either appointed or elected. The majority of those are elected. Some of you in here may be a special service district. You may be appointed either by the, I think Sun River has a special service district, and they're actually appointed by the county commissioners through some cooperation with their homeowners association. Some of our road districts are appointed by the county, where they're appointed by the county commissioners, but the majority of us are elected when it comes to board members. They get that elected board as a whole has some authority. You can set policy and give direction for the district. You serve at the best interest of the community and constituents. I put this in here because that's going to play in later. When we talk about relationships and clickers falling apart, we need to make sure that we understand that we're here as elected officials to serve at the best interest of the community and the constituents we represent. The board also has the authority to give direction, to take action. How do you take action? A lot of you attended the public meetings presentation or Thursday, the pre-conference. Anytime you take action as a board, you must be at a properly called public meeting, must be properly posted. Any action you take must be taken by a quorum. The quorum must be there. So if you're a 5-member board, must be 3, 7-member board must be 4. And approval must be by the majority of the board, not by the majority of those present. And we got into quite a discussion on Thursday with the group over, can any ballots, any votes you take not be public? And the answer to that is absolutely not. All actions taken by the board of directors are a public record. You can, I had somebody say, well, can I just pass a note to the board chair? Well, yeah, you can pass a note, but then the board chair is going to read it that Joe voted yes, okay? Because it's going to be read into the minutes. So there are no secret ballots, and I know at times that can put some of you in an uncomfortable position. And my answer to that is pretty straightforward. I'm sorry, okay, that you're uncomfortable, but your vote is important, and your vote is a public record. So when you talk about board member authority, do board members have any authority other than the board? And the answer to that is really no. All members are equal. All board members are equal. You may, as a board, pass a board policy that gives some responsibilities to a board member. All of you probably go through some type of process on an annual basis that elects officers for your board, a president, vice president, chair, vice chair, whatever it may be. You can have a policy at your board level that says, quote, our board president, our board chair will be responsible for blank. Signing checks, if that's appropriate, signing any contracts that we enter into that we approve or signed by that. You can assign some additional authority. You can even say that our board president is going to represent us at the Kiwanis Club, you know, but that's done at the board level. That isn't something that's just granted that somebody just can just assume. Is that okay? So that's done by the board. I have a question. All right, now bear with me, folks. Help me remember this. The gentleman's going to ask a question. I've got to repeat it, not for you, for the people that are maybe online and virtual. Go.
If the board assigns responsibility to, say, the board chair, if the board chair then transfer that to another board member, my example is if you say the board chair will sign on behalf of the board at the present time. If the board chair doesn't want to sign documents, whatever agrees, the board directs you, can he direct another board member to sign that document?
The board isn't directing the person, isn't forcing the, oh, I gotta ask the questions. I told you to remind me. Okay, the question is, can a board president or chair basically refuse to sign something the board has authorized, okay? And direct someone else to do it. Here's my answer. Now remember, this is we're not talking a legal thing here. We're talking about functioning. Can I, as the board chair, board president, say, you know, look, I realize it's my responsibility to sign that. As you saw earlier, I voted against it. I really don't want to sign it. Yeah, I could do that. Okay. I mean, what's it hurt? Then it would fall on the vice president, even though the board took the action. Now I can, God, tell you right here in front of you that I wouldn't do that because I took on an oath to be a board member. I've accepted the responsibility of the board president. The board voted 4-1 to approve that contract. What am I going to do? I'm going to sign it, right? So there's my answer. Put on your big boy pants and sign the document.
Okay, but bottom line, if he refuses, direct someone else to sign it, they refuse, and the board as a whole has said, sign the document.
Yeah.
Bottom line, who's going to sign it?
Well, let's just say representative of the board. That's the silliest thing, okay? But well, no, there's no conflict of interest. Once the conflict would have been, this is a whole other class now, the conflict of interest would have been during the decision to approve it, that whatever the board president's been asked to sign. That's when the conflict would have happened if there was a conflict of interest, not when it's time to sign. It's already been approved. The board's already taken the action. Does that make sense?
Well, I think if the board president was the one that had a conflict of interest and declared that conflict of interest,
then he could, the board took the action. He didn't take the action. Yeah, so then he can still, is it not working? Oh, that virtual thing. I'm keeping going. I'm not starting over. I forgot what I already said. I mean, I think this is silliness. I'm sorry, gentlemen, but sign the damn document. I mean, you didn't take the action. You're just attesting that the board approved it. Does that make sense?
That makes sense, but still, if they refuse it, that's part of the board that shares responsibility.
So we're going to haul him off to jail, or what are we going to do?
What is the outcome? I mean, it would seem to me that as long as all the board members know the policy, and if you don't want to do that.
Exactly. That's where I was going to go. I didn't want you to lose your position.
directed the board chair to sign, he said he wouldn't sign, and he didn't agree with that. And I said, well, I don't think you really have the option. The board said you sign. I said, well, it's not coming to the meeting, or let someone else sign.
Exactly.
I said,
I'm-
well, direct the responsibility.
Yeah, it's as long as it's a test, as long as the thing is signed by it, the person attesting for the board. I would have changed it and made it the vice chair, the vice president that signed it. I'd changed the name and gone on. That's what I'd have done. I wouldn't have lost sleep over it. I lost enough sleep preparing for this class. You guys keep me awake. Online question.
How are ordinances enforced?
How are ordinances enforced? Well, we haven't got to that yet. Okay. How are ordinances enforced? Well, first of all, you better have the authority to enforce it internally. If you don't, you better have made arrangements with somebody to help you with that prior to passing the ordinance. So like for us, fire service, which I'll get to in a second, but if we make the fireworks ordinance more restrictive, then we better have a relationship with the county sheriff and the deputy and the local police to help us enforce that when the time comes. Otherwise, don't pass the dang thing. You have no way to enforce it. How's that? Whew. Good. All right. Board member rights and duties. You can be compensated. You've heard this all before. Your board can elect to accept compensation up to $50 per day or less if you choose to. You're not required to, but you can. Do you have any people's utility districts represented in here? Okay. You have a little bit different. If you have a little bit different in your enabling legislation, you had better lobbyists that. Got that, girl. In 261, you have a little more latitude than the rest of us. Okay. So if you really want to be on a board, that's the board to be on. All right. You have because I had some people's utility district people approach me. Wait a minute, George, we're doing this. I'm going, you're different. You had better lobbyists when that was passed than the rest of us. Okay. All right. You can always be reimbursed for expenses. Remember that elected board members can be recalled, but usually otherwise can't be removed. I had a question given to me earlier, and I don't know if you noticed this, but I mill around out there. People are approaching me all the time. I had a question asked that I want to share with all of you. Can a board member be removed for something other than recall? There are some situations when that can happen. However, it's not by you, the board, okay? It's through a system, through the mental health. If the family comes to you or you go to the family and say, hey, George has been attending our meetings. He's been on our board for 30 years and, he's nodding off. He's not paying attention. Is there something going on? And if you get a cooperation with the family, and the reason I can tell you this, because this actually has happened, okay? If you cooperation with the family and you get a mental health evaluation, a judge will rule that that person is incompetent. Now, that is a difficult thing to do emotionally because that's probably a good friend of yours who's been a board member for a long time. But that mechanism is out there. It's not easy, but it can happen, and it has in Oregon. Okay, generally, it's the family saying, Uncle Tom isn't really up to it anymore, and they figure out some way for the person to resign. But anyway, somebody asked that question, that is the answer, all right? Difficult. Question?
What if the board member's been appointed by the board?
What if the board member's been appointed by the board and now you want them off? Okay, we're going to get into disruptive in a little bit. But once a person has been appointed to an elected position, they're elected. So it's no different. Okay. Hi, nice try. Nice try. We're going to talk about that in a few minutes. Okay.
George,
one more online.
How can we replace board officers that aren't performing as well as we would like, not removing them, but making another person board president?
Absolutely. You can do that. How can you do that? Who can answer that out there? Anybody had that happen? The question is this. If you at your annual meeting, you elect somebody to be your chair, your board president, your board vice, whatever, and they don't function in that capacity throughout, for some reason, can you as a board replace them? Yeah, you cannot kick them off the board, okay, because they're a board member, but you definitely can. You gave them that right. You gave them that rank. You can take it away. Has to be, put it on your agenda, show up at your meeting. It's a discussion item, and you can't do that. Now, No, it cannot be an executive session item. No, cannot. Sure, it absolutely would be that. Now, am I advocating for you to do that? No, but I have had districts that have had, they actually had a bully pulpit kind of thing, and they weren't getting things done. And they said, what can we do? And I said, well, you need to get legal advice. But my understanding is, and I gave them what I just told you, and that's what they did. It didn't make for friendly relationships. Okay, sir. Well, no, it's, you really, we actually have a board, one of our member boards, and I'm not being negative. I'm just sharing common knowledge. They've censored a board member. I mean, they just said, look, you're disruptive. We're not listening to you anymore. And so they've censored them. I don't know how that works. They got good legal advice on it. I didn't advise them, but that person comes to meetings, sits there and can vote, but really has no dialogue. They won't interact with them. Now, not a good situation.
If you have a disruptive board member who's not able to get them off the board, like draft a letter to them asking for
Can you draft a letter to somebody that's disruptive on your board and say, look, we'd like you to resign? Sure. There's nothing, you can do that. It's got no merit. It's got no weight, yeah, but sure, you can. All they can do is say no. It's just like people will ask me, George, can we censor a board member? Well, okay. What does that mean? Can we, it's a vote of the board, and it's an embarrassment to the board member, but it has they don't lose their position. Okay. Am I advocating that? No, but you're going to hear what I advocate here in a few minutes. But yeah, you can. You can. There's nothing that says you can't. And like I say, I know of one district right now that has basically censored a board member. Not the best environment. That board meeting is not fun to go to. Okay. Any more questions? How about online? Oh my God. No.
Know if you're going to get to even this topic, though.
Okay, go.
Can you tell us when a board should use a motion, a resolution, or an ordinance?
Yes. Stand by. That was fun. All right, board member rights and duties. I can tell you all the negative things. Here's the positive things. You're protected, board members. Under the Oregon Tort Claims Act, you're protected against negligence of the board, but you're not entitled if you operate outside your course and scope. We're not going to get into that. We've got a time limit here, okay? You can be found personally liable for repayment of unlawful expenditures of public funds. I don't know why you do that, but if you do, you're going to pay it back. And here's the one that I thought I'd never have to talk about to people like you. But after a thing that happened in Washington, D.C. a while back, a few months ago, whenever it was here, a couple of years ago, I want to make sure you understand this. You can become ineligible for public office if a member of or affiliated with any organization which teaches a doctrine and or advocates for the overthrow of the U.S. government, okay, by force. You and I can disagree with the government. We can sit here and beat them up verbally, but if we show up down there with guns and rifles, we can't serve in Oregon as an elected position. And that is being dealt with right now at some levels because of what happened in DC a few years ago. There's actually people being challenged on that. Board's roles and responsibilities. Okay, here we go. This is just a reminder as we build up to dealing with tough board members, a reminder of how we make decisions, okay? How do we as a board make decisions? Well, number one, we have regular voting procedures. They affect our day-to-day operations. They approve our minutes, pay our bills. They're just recorded in the minutes. There's no other documentation required. Simply a motion, a second, discussion, and a vote. The vote is generally verbal, and it's generally just, it is recorded. If you need to do if the vote is not unanimous, okay, it needs to be recorded that George voted yes, Walt voted no, Kelly voted yes, Troy voted, in your minutes, in the written minutes, okay? Any questions on that? That's just a simple how you do business at your board meetings all the time for the simple stuff, okay? The next one is resolutions. A resolution establishes formal policy of the district or the board governs internal operations, and it's a very simple adoption process. It's one meeting. It's on your agenda that you're going to have a policy discussion on reimbursement of board expenses, personal expenses. The policy number, when it comes up for discussion, it's moved and seconded. In some districts, they go to the formal part of actually creating a separate document, the policy, and it's policy number 1, board reimbursements. It can be voted on in one meeting, can be discussed and voted on in one meeting, and it's recorded in the minutes. But it's a standalone document. It's a policy. Make sense? Okay. So those two things govern, that two processes, basically how you run the majority of your meeting as far as making decisions. Motions, seconds, resolutions, can be a formal resolution. You all do at least one. I used to say 2, but now I found out it's 1. You do one formal resolution every year. What is it? Budget adoption. You levy a tax or you levy a fee. It's a formal resolution. Okay. Ordinances. This is where the questions come from. Okay. The majority of the districts in here have the authority to impose an ordinance. An ordinance is a law on the people. Okay. Check your legislation and make sure you have the right, because it's not going to be for everything. Cities and counties have almost unlimited ordinance. They enact laws all the time on us, right? But you may not. Okay. I got to come up with a better example in this because I know you're getting tired of hearing it, but I always have to use the fire service because that's where I grew up. Okay. In the fire service, I know for a fact that the state fire marshal has given the local fire districts the authority to adopt the Oregon Fire Code and make it more restrictive, not less. Okay. So if you're going to adopt the fire code and make it more restrictive, who's that a law on? The people, right? So you got to go through an ordinance process. Ordinance process is 2 meetings. This isn't an ordinance class, but I'm just going to give you the height. It takes 2 meetings. It must be formally written out what you're trying to do. What's the law you're going to put on me as your citizen? You must be noticed properly, okay, that you're going to talk about this. You're going to take input from me as the public. You're going to take input. You're going to have a hearing on it, okay? And after 2 meetings of discussion, you can approve it or not. You can choose not to, okay? But that's an ordinance. So it's very formal. It can't be done at one meeting. There's got to be a record of it, and you actually file that with the county clerk. You actually keep a permanent record in your office, and you file it with the county clerk, because it is a law on who? This is how I keep you awake, because I ask you questions, okay? All right. Law on the people. All right. What are the characteristics of an effective board? Okay, we're building up to your problem, okay? We're building up to it. What are the characteristics of effective boards? A lot of you have heard me talk about this before, but I want to reemphasize it. And Mark Knudsen, who's sitting out there, really helped me break this down some here a year ago. There's a clarity and alignment of vision, mission, and values on the board. There is a clarity. The boards that are really effective have got a good clarity on that. We'll talk about that a little bit more in a minute. They're creative and collaborative partners. They see themselves as board members as creative and collaborative partners, not enemies. They're in this together. They want the best park and rec for their community. They want the best fire service for their community. They want the best, water, whatever. Mark, are you raising your hand? Go. Yeah. Well, what his question was is, back on the ordinance thing, can a district enact an emergency ordinance? And the answer is yes, they can. I didn't bring it up. It's a way of going about it. If you have a true emergency, cities and counties, it's much easier for them to do, but you can have an emergency ordinance, but you doggone better have an emergency for you're putting a law on me, okay? I'm aware of a city that thanks to Eileen, she shared this with me a few years ago, of a city that did an emergency ordinance because they had issues with nudity in a public park and they needed it to stop. Okay. Hey, I thought that was kind of cool thing to have happen. And of course, I had a whole different vision of the nudity than it actually was. But anyway, Where are you people? All right. Does that help you, Mark? All right. There's no secrets, no surprises on effective boards. You're not the only board member that knows something. You're sharing it either on the record or off the record with your fellow board members. Hey, I've been approached by something, or I've learned something that might impact our district. Share that so we can all be prepared for it when it happens. You assume a collective responsibility for board conduct and district performance. We're going to get into board conduct here in a few minutes. And one of the things I really want to emphasize is we like to say this when we got a disruptive board member. You know, this person is this, or this person is that, you know. Whose responsibility is that? It's the board. It's all of us. It's all of us. It's staff, it's board, to work with that and figure that out. It's not, you know, there's a reason people are disruptive. There's some reason there. We just got to find it, and we're going to talk about that a little more. Let's finish up the effective boards. When I talk about boards being effective with vision, mission, and values, here's what they mean. If you've ever had a class with me, I bring this up every time, because I think boards that have a clear vision of what they want their district to be like, and it may not be there today, but they got a vision, they're looking down there, okay? Because when the board makes a decision, remember that motion second or that resolution? When they're making that decision, they should be asking themselves, how does that help us reach the vision? How does that help us continue our mission? Not just, it saved us 10 cents today, but how does that help us down the road? How does that help us provide the service? Okay. And the other thing they have is a set of guiding principles or a set of values that they all buy into. And they talk about them from time to time. Okay. And I'm not going to embarrass anybody in this room, but I can't believe how many boards have never talked about that with their staff. I don't care if you got a full volunteer staff. Never sit down and said, look, how are we going to conduct business here? Are all of us committed to being honest? Are all of us committed to being polite? Okay. Courteous? We can't have that discussion? Sure you can. Sure you can. My wife and I have it all the time. Okay. Oh no, there's some problems there. All right, the framework, it seems really easy. Did I just skip 2? No, the framework, it seems so easy. Don't forget, this is what the framework is, okay? The voters elect who? The board. The board hires who? The CEO, the fire chief, the general manager. Generally, we like boards, effective boards, keep it at that level. The CEO, the general manager, the fire chief takes care of all the rest of the hiring through maybe processes. And I was talking to some people before this class started. Who says, I'm going to use this, and this really isn't part of this class, but I thought of this after this question was asked me, and I should have emphasized this to them. Who says how many people you can hire in the district? Who's me? Me? General manager? I get another answer out there? Oh, who said budget? When do you as a board authorize staffing? When do you authorize staffing? When you approve that budget. That's when you authorize staffing. I can't, as your fire chief, I just can't go out and hire. I need 50 people. I'm going to go hire them. Broke. Okay. You authorize that. That's a policy decision of the board. Now, who those people are is whose responsibility? The manager and his staff, or his or her staff, their staff. Okay. But you do that in your budget process generally. Okay. Now, in mid-budget, could you authorize some position that you hadn't authorized? Sure. Staff could bring to you, hey, we found a need for blank. We're going to fund it this way in the budget. And you authorize the position, not the person. Make sense? All right, good. Whew. See how much better I get? Like whoever asked me that question, I can answer that question better after I think about it. All right. All right. Again, we're working on the foundation of the framework. Remember that the board is accountable to the voters. That's who's going to keep you in office or not. It's those people that elect you, okay? The authority comes from the public. The authority you have comes from the public through the state, okay? The fire chief, the CEO, the general manager is accountable to the board. The board has one employee. I can't emphasize that enough. Stay out of personnel matters board as much as you can. Sometimes the CEO has to bring you in from a standpoint of, because things have maybe gone to the front page of the paper standpoint, and we got to make sure you're informed that you're the smartest people on the subject, but it's basically his or her responsibility to manage that. Some guiding principles. Here, as I end this section, I got to bring these up. I bring these up anytime I do a class, how important it is, board members, that you talk to each other once in a while about what kind of expectations you have for each other. What a concept, okay? You're all elected, you're all independent, you're all individuals, you have the right to have your own thought. We want you to have your own opinion. We want you to have the courage to come to a board meeting to give your opinion, share your knowledge, but we want to have some idea that there's expectations between us so that you know how to, you can conduct good meetings. These are the ones that I've had for quite a while. Thanks to Mark, they've been kind of re-emphasized a little bit differently, but I used them anyway. We expect our board members to be prepared and informed about the stuff that's on our agenda. We don't expect our board members, as board members, to each other, to be ready for everything that might come up tonight, because we don't know what might come up, but we know what's on the agenda, okay? And we're gonna, I actually had somebody mention to me at this conference that, hey, George, what do you do about the board member that shows up at a board meeting, opens up their board pack and sets it, never looks at it, and has never looked at it? And I say, well, you make decisions as a board. If one board member is prepared to discuss it, a good leader is going to know that, a good board president, a good board chair, and manage the board. And you may have to manage that individual because they're going to be asking questions that they could have got where? Answered. In preparing, right? That doesn't mean they shouldn't be part of the discussion, but you want to limit that, okay? Because again, we're all board members, we're all staff that have to sit through board meetings, and we want those meetings to be effective, appropriate, but timely. Fair? Okay? There's nothing worse than walking into a 7 p.m. meeting and still be sitting there at 9:30 talking about item 1. Okay? How can I bring that up? Been there. Okay? And how did we get around that? By having some things like this in place that people then were prepared. People then knew that we're going to be on time, we're going to be friendly, we're going to be courageous. They also knew that when the board made a decision, when there was that 4-1 vote, that 3-2 vote, that 4-3 vote, whatever size of board you may have, that when they walked out of there, they're going to support the decision. Don't have to totally agree with it, but going to support the decision of the who? The board. The board.
George,
Question online.
No, the board doesn't get involved in operations, but should the board be informed on operational SOGs?
Depending on the type of department, the board doesn't get involved in operational decisions. The board does establish policies that may affect operations. For example, a very simple 1-paragraph safety policy for a board is this: our district will follow Oregon OSHA blank, blank, blank. You have no idea what that means, okay? But your general manager, your parks ranger, your waterworks guy, your GM, he writes an SOG, standard operating guideline, for all of his staff, that in order to meet Oregon OSHA for us, we need to do these things. We're gonna have monthly safety meetings, we're gonna da. That's SOG. So are they involved with approving, adopting the SOG? In my opinion, no. Do they write a policy that forces me as the fire chief to have a good SOG? Yes. Okay, ma'am. As a board member, I don't know why, but you could, yeah. I mean, if you ask me, is your fire chief taken? I see the SOG on, use of portable extinguishers. I say, sure. Good luck in understanding it, maybe. I don't know. No, as a board member, you have every right to say, hey, what do we have in place to meet Oregon OSHA? And I would come to you then at the next meeting and go, okay, we have policy 6 in place that says this, policy 7 in place that says this. Yeah. Absolutely, you have the right to ask that question. Absolutely. Now, would I just necessarily hand you the SOG book and just let you go out and read it? You probably wouldn't. Don't misunderstand this. I don't know anything about you, but you might not understand it. Okay, so I would be much more comfortable presenting it to the board, not the individual board member, to the board saying, here's what we put in place to meet your policy. Okay. Good? Good. Okay, the last one, I'm going to go over this real quick, but this is board should have expectations for their staff. What a concept. In order for your meeting to run effectively, in order for your decisions to get dispersed appropriately, you need to make sure your staff understands what your expectations are. Number one, staff, we expect you to be prepared and informed about what? Oh, come on, don't everybody answer this at the same time. Yeah, the agenda. You're our technical experts. I'm just a guy that loves parks. I'm a guy that loves the fact that I can turn on my water faucet and water comes out. But how did it get there? Okay. Make sense? All right. You're going to provide a staff with options. Develop a support packet. Give us options. Don't just tell us there's one way to do it. Okay. Now, if there's only one way to do it because somebody authority that we don't have any control over says you must do this, okay, share that with us. All right. Give us a recommendation if you can. If it's appropriate for you to give us recommendations, give us one. Again, board members should look at you as what? The technical expert. And if you're not, let's have you bring somebody in that's more technical than you to explain it to us. That's okay. That's okay. You know, the fire chief could bring in his fire marshal and say, hey, look, this is a code issue. He's more up to speed than I am. That's perfect. The park and rec director could bring in the aquatics director to explain something going on at the pool. There's nothing wrong with that. That's part of your staff. Okay. What else we got up here? Communicate with us, no surprises. Staff, don't surprise us at the board meeting. Keep us informed of what's going on at a certain level. Okay. My board made this, I tell this story and it's a true story. My board said, look, George, when something happens, it's going to hit the front page of the paper or it's going to affect me at my coffee clutch in the morning, you call me anytime. 2:30 in the morning. Had a crew lay 1,000 feet of 5-inch hose. Now, I don't know if you know what a 5-inch hose looks like. It looks like that around. Down Highway 30 at 55 miles an hour. They didn't really want to do that. Okay. It bounced out and they laid it. And guess what happened? Guess what was following them? Cars. So we got a little bit of a traffic issue that we caused. Okay. 2:30 in the morning, guess who I called? My board. Why? Because it was funny. And everybody in town was going to be talking about it by 8 o'clock. I wanted them to hear it from me. Number one, board, this happened. It was our fault. Nobody got hurt. Even the hose didn't get real badly damaged. Dinged up a couple cars, not going to cost us too much money. We'll give it to SDAO. All right. But they knew about it. They didn't walk into their coffee clutch that morning or for heaven's sakes, go to church and have people going, wow, the fire district put on quite a show last night on Highway 30. All right. Now that was a funny thing that happened. Nobody got hurt, but something could happen to be worse. Make sure your board members are aware of it. Make sure your board members are aware, staff. You want to keep a, effective board that you've had a bad day. You've had a bad day in the district, or you've had a great day in the district. Don't let them be the last one to hear about some employee that's done something exceptional, which probably happens all the time. Okay. You may think it's, no big deal, but it may be a big deal to that board member. Yes. Online question.
If there is no conflict of interest declared, are board members allowed to abstain from a called vote?
Are they allowed? Yeah. I mean, there's nothing. Okay. The question was if a person does declare, doesn't have a conflict of interest, can they abstain from voting? Sure, they can. Why? Okay. And if I was the board chair or board president and that happened with one of my board members, I'd say, hey, Walt, what's the problem? And Walt's going to have to say, well, I really don't agree with this. Great, you vote no. That's okay. It's okay to vote no. All right. but they should be called out on it, okay? Because why? Who are they doing a disservice to by not voting? The people that put them in the spot, the people that elected them. It's okay to not agree with the majority. Nothing wrong with that. It's your reaction to not agreeing that causes you problems as a board member, not the fact you disagree. It's your reaction to it. Okay? I can honestly tell you, I served on a board for 25 years. I did not vote yes on everything. I was told them why. You know, hey, I don't think that's a good idea. I just don't think it's a good idea. You haven't convinced me. The four of you are convinced. Let's go, but I'm voting no. Did we do it? And it go fine? Sure. And was I embarrassed? No. Okay. You shouldn't be either. Now, if you're always the no voter, then maybe you need to look in the mirror. Okay. You take a look in the mirror and go, wait a minute, what's wrong with me? Is there something wrong with me? I tell people about relationships all the time. When I was a functioning manager of people, and there were times when I was at Tuolumne Valley that there were 300 of them. And everything that went on with those 300 ended up eventually in whose office? Mine. I went home to my wife one day and I said, you got to help me. There's 300 of them. There's only one of me. You know, how do I do this? And she says, start by looking in the mirror. And then Michael Jackson came out with a song. Remember that? And I went, that's what she's talking about. So I really mean that. When you, and I was going to save this till the very end, but this just seems like the right time. Don't anybody leave, okay? When you're having a conflict with somebody and you really are thinking, I don't know if this board member and I can make it, start with the mirror. Start there. What could you do different to help? That doesn't mean you're going to vote with that person every time, okay? But is there something you could do different? And I'll tell you, whoa, who knows first aid here? I even do that with myself. I help coach 7th grade girls basketball. Yeah, I don't know why. There's stuff going on in their minds. I have no idea what's going on in there. I'm lucky that I do it with my daughter. And every once in a while, my daughter looks at me, she says, don't worry, Dad, I got it. You know, thank you. That at times we just have to look at ourselves though and go, how can I help this person be better? Okay. And what's going on with them that can we get inside and, you know, help them through something? Because generally when people get on boards, what are the vast majority of people getting on the board to do? Service their community, make something better. You know, it's kind of cool to be seen as a fire district board member, as a sanitary district board member, as a soil and water conservation district board member. You know, people that get those services respect you, okay? They respect you for doing that. Fair? It's kind of cool. Be there for the right reasons. All right, what do I do with that thing? There it is. You guys got to help me. How am I doing? I got 45 minutes, right? This is going to work. All right. So how do we manage relationships? All of that was foundation stuff to put us all kind of on the same plane to bring us up to, George, the reason I'm here is we just got a guy on our gal or they on our board that I just struggle with, okay? Let's talk about it. Who are these difficult board members? Who are they? Are they in the room? Huh? Well, here's the kind of the list I came up with. There's the overbearing ones. There's the Georges. Do you think with my voice, my personality, I could be a little overbearing? You know, I'm 6'2", you know, 190 pounds. I was a rookie firefighter, had been working at then Washington County for about 6 months, and my engineer that was training us came to me and he says, you know, you're going to be an officer in this organization someday. And I said, I've been here 6 months. I'm just trying to get off probation. I don't want to lose my job. He says, no. He says, you got a lot of things going for you. So number one, he says, you're not afraid to speak in front of people. He says, number two, you have an opinion. You're not afraid to listen to somebody else, and you're 6'2". And that guy was about 5'6". Now, he became a very effective officer in our organization. It was Jerry Wright, by the way. But I've never forgot that size does matter. How many of you seen Liam? You know what it's like for me to walk up and look at somebody's chest? Oh, sorry, ladies. I mean, that's where I line up on him. I got to go like this. I mean, holy smolies. But he's a gentle giant if you ever get to know him. He is just a gentle giant. All right. But some board members who are difficult, they're difficult only because they're the loudest voice. Some of us just don't like that. And really, there's nothing else wrong with them. They're just the loudest voice. Okay. Some of them are conspiracy theorists. Everything, there must be a conspiracy. And, I had to look this up, but it's becoming more prevalent today that, well, there must be conspiring to do something. Those 3 board members always agree. Or those 4 or 5, okay? So they're out there and they just think there's a conspiracy going on. I don't know, maybe there is. They're contrarians. If you vote yes, how are they going to vote? You vote no, how are they going to vote? I actually served on a board with somebody like that. It didn't matter. She says, George, I'm not going to vote with you. We had to work it out. It took us a few months. We worked it out. But I intimidated her, so I must be wrong, right? No. How about the agendist? People that show up with a personal agenda. I love this one. I think these are the easiest difficult board members to manage. They get elected to your board because they want to fix something that's broken. And then they learn what? It ain't broken, okay? But it takes time to get them there. We're going to talk about how you get them there. When I was first appointed fire chief which is now Club River Fire and Rescue, I was hired in May. In July, I got 2 new board members. It had nothing to do with me being hired. And they didn't like it, that they weren't considered, okay? Because they were on the ballot when I was hired. They didn't really know me, but they made my life a little miserable for a while. Until what? Until we did some of the things we're going to talk about here. And we got them to realize that I wasn't the enemy. I was a partner. I was going to work with them to try to make that district better and to provide the service level that they wanted to see. Now, their big deal was they wanted a whole lot of service for what? Nothing. They wanted the taxes reduced. So it took us a while as a step. First of all, I had to learn that. I had to get inside their head and think, where are these guys coming from? Where are they coming from? Okay. We found out, we started working with them, we started getting them involved with our people, showing them what service we were providing, showing them how, because we had paramedics that could deliver, at that time, a $5,000 a dose drug, people were living. People were surviving things they couldn't survive in the past. We had to teach them that. So they had to spend time with some of our rookiest people to learn that. It wasn't just me. They just wasn't hearing it from me or from the board president or from a fellow board member. We had to earn their what? Trust. When you have a difficult board member, is that because that person doesn't trust the board, doesn't trust the district, doesn't trust something? Why? You got to find that out. You got to work and find that out. You got to do the work. You can't be, if you're tired of your board being disruptive or a board member being disruptive, and the only thing you're doing as a board member is showing up to the board meeting and then going home ticked because that person upsets you, whose fault is that? Yours. You might have to do a little work to build a relationship with that person to maybe figure out what's going on. Fair? Okay, it's a little bit of work. All right. You also have those ones that have a bone to pick. They're the bone pickers. They want to fix one thing. And I actually know of a board member that got elected to a board that had a bone to pick, picked the bone, got it fixed, quit the board, left the board, okay? Now, what the other board members realized from that board member was they had a problem that they needed to fix. And once that happened, that board member went, well, my job is done here, I'm out of here, okay? I don't recommend that, but that did happen in Oregon. You remember, the vast majority, I used to say everything, but I do embellish a couple of things. The vast majority of the thing I would tell you, you people have taught me. Okay, I've learned it from your districts. Okay. The second guessers, they don't like former decisions. Okay. Out in my area, we actually got some of this going on right now. We got people out there that are second guessing some of our districts to death. Well, back in 1969, they made this decision. Okay. It's been a long time. It's been 52 years ago or 3 years ago, whatever that is. Okay. Wow, that's a long time ago. I happen to know somebody that graduated in 89 that's in this class, just so you know. Yeah, my grandson, no, but it could be my daughter. All right. So, question? Sir.
Rules of order, you cannot discuss an item that has been previously decided. Are bound by Robert's rules.
Thank you for asking that question. Did you attend the public meeting training that went on earlier? God bless you, my son. His question was, our special district boards must follow Robert's Rules of Order. Is that fair? Is that a fair question? All right. Here's my answer to that. I wish Eileen was here but the answer to that is, what my reading is, it's recommended that boards, governing bodies, adopt by reference Robert's Rules of Order. Adopt by reference, okay? Don't let Robert's Rules of Order be your, how do I want to say this? A way to stop discussion, okay? A way to stop an issue. What I say about here's what I say about conducting good meetings. Now, this is a George Dunkel soapbox. I say, but could you conduct your meetings in the principles of Robert's Rules of Order? Absolutely. If you get to this is where Robert's Rules of Order, I think, gets confusing. If a motion's made, and then you have and it's seconded, and you have some discussion, and then you go, wow, I want to change that motion. Well, we're going to amend it. And it just gets people can't figure out what you're going to vote on. It's just a struggle. I say this, do away with the motions and restate it. Just go back to square one. What are you trying to do? Are you trying to let parliamentarian process drag down your decision making, or are you trying to make good decisions? Go ahead. Good guidance. Thank you, sir. It's good guidance. Absolutely. Now, you were being specific, though, and you were going to ask about, can you go back and look at something?
That's correct. Can you return to a question once the matter has been decided? And can you discuss it?
Yeah. My guidance as a practitioner on that is this. If the board makes a decision on something today, okay, they vote to do something, and they go out the door and we all support it. Down the road, we learn facts that would have impacted that decision, and we have the ability to go back and fix it, then absolutely come back to it. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Now, I want to be careful with that, because I'm not saying that I, as a board member, I lost that vote. I get to go back and argue my same points again. What I'm saying is, Don, who's a general manager, brings a fact to the board. Hey, when you made this decision, we told you there was $2 million in this pot. We now have only 1.5. We'd like you to reconsider it. Absolutely reconsider it. Does that make sense? Fair, Don. I just started to pick on you, but you're sitting right there, brother. I'm telling you. All right. So, who's responsible to manage the board? Is the leadership? Go to sleep. Is the board president chair, are they responsible to manage all the board members? Yeah, we could argue that. How about staff? They help manage board members? Yeah, maybe not, maybe. Okay, let's keep going here. How about fellow board members? Can they help manage fellow board members? Yeah, maybe. Yeah, maybe. How about citizens, voters, patrons? Do they help manage board members? How? We're in, out. Recall, maybe, okay. I capitalized the bottom one. All these people have a responsibility. I have responsibility as a fellow board member to help manage those board meetings and help my board members. You have a responsibility to help manage me. Okay? You have a responsibility. That's how we do that keeps us out of conflict or puts us into conflict. Okay? If you want to be confrontational in a board meeting, there's no law against it. I don't recommend it. Okay? I don't recommend it. I know boards, I'm not going to bring up escape rooms, but I know boards that don't allow porcelain coffee cups at their board meetings. Styrofoam only, paper. Huh?
Except that's not even safe, they fall over easy.
Well, I'm just saying, no, you won't see any porcelain, at their board meetings. Now, why? Yeah, it's a projectile, okay? It's a projectile. And I hope that's not your board meeting. But that's true. Greg Baker, and I wish Greg was still really associated with us. He was our CEO of SDO for years. Greg Baker used to be a general manager of a port. Greg Baker tells a story where a person was getting excited at a board meeting and started pointing the finger and got it bit. Yeah, you guys, yeah. And it worked. Okay. Yeah, I hope that's not going on in your district. Anyway, so we all have some responsibility, but how do we do that? Well, here's a tried and proven strategy, and I will be very honest with you. I have done this. As a board member, I've actually done this. I was on a board where we got a new board member, and it was pretty obvious that board member was there with what? A personal agenda, okay? A personal agenda. And after a few meetings and kind of listened, this person would go through at that particular district, at that particular time in our development, we basically, when you walked into the board meeting, there was a stack of checks this tall and a stack of invoices next to it. And two board members would sign the checks. And there, this before electronic stuff and all that. Well, that one board member, after been on the board a couple months, would individually compare the check to the invoice. I mean, would just basically demonstrated no confidence in who? Staff, no confidence, okay? And it would delay, remember our meeting that started at 7 in the evening? It would just delay us moving on because this person wouldn't vote on paying the bills, And so the board president finally said, he came to me and he says, you got to help me fix this. And I said, well, let me take the guy to coffee. So I've actually done this. If you're going to help make a disruptive member of your board more effective, you may not win them over totally, but you want to get to a plane where they're not disrupting your meetings are still smooth, meet with them privately. Have a private meeting with them. It's okay. You're not, unless you're a 3-person board, any irrigation districts, any of the 3-person boards, you can't meet with them. Okay. You got to leave it to somebody else. But are you only a 3-person board? Well, no wonder you stay employed so well. Yeah. You only got to keep 2 people happy. So that can be a problem for your board, but for the rest of you, it isn't. Go ahead.
Is confront the word you mean, or do you mean address them in person?
I put confront. I don't mean confront in a violent or a confrontational manner. I mean it more, taking the issue head on, taking responsibility for it and saying, look, I'm willing to meet with Walt, one-on-one. In fact, we've met Walt one-on-one and walk through the issue. So that's really what I mean. So yeah, a better word may be that. Okay. I thought I saw another hand. All right. When you meet Mike.
Are you speaking as a fellow board member?
Yes. No, I'm talking about, now wait a minute. I am talking here to board members, board member to board member. But I will tell you that as a sitting fire chief, I've done this with a fellow board member at the blessing of my board president. I went to my board president. I said, look, that board member is kicking your butt. can I help you? And he said, oh, please, see what you can do. Okay. But so when you meet with them, don't focus on them. Focus on what? The district, the mission, why we're there. What about the district is bothering them? Where can we help them understand the district better? As a fellow board member, can we do that? If you've got examples, and you better have them, use a specific example. Here's where you disrupted the board meeting, or here's where you're causing stress on people that don't, all of our board members, except for maybe getting the $50, are what? Volunteers. They're giving up time with their family, giving up time with their business, whatever, to come and sit in a meeting with a jerk. That's not fun, okay? Let's figure out why is that person being a jerk, because they're probably really not. They're probably really good people, right? They want to be there. They want to volunteer. They probably got some good values in there. You just got to get it out, okay? But use some examples of why they've caused stress on the board. And the good examples, I call it the I message. It's your perception. Make sure it's what you observe. You're not speaking on behalf of everybody else. Don't do it. I should have emphasized that earlier. You're speaking on your behalf, not on your fellow board members. They may agree with you, but when you're meeting with that person one-on-one, don't gang up on them. Make sense? Don't gang up. Make sure it's how it makes you feel, how it makes you interpret the district. You interpret the tenor of the board meeting. Okay? Is that fair? All right. I should have capitalized this one. You want to find out what's going on with that person? Ask them good questions, give them good examples, and then listen. And not just listen for what you want to hear. Oh, I'm getting them over. They're starting to see this, right? No, listen for what's their real issue. What's the bottom line? If we could turn a switch right now, what would make them a happy person with the district? Listen for that. You may not be able to go there, but you do know what? You know what it is, right? You know what it is. Okay. I know a person today that's sole mission on bothering a board. They're not a sitting board member, but their sole mission out in public is that they fear for their own relative's job. Yeah. If you really get to the bottom of what they're doing to this district, the stress they're putting this district under, and I even go as far to think because they know their relative is a jerk, so they're trying to protect them. Okay, go.
But is that a conflict of interest?
Now, if it was a board member, it could be. Yes, that was just a citizen. I mean, I'm just talking about the way some people deal with issues. Because when you start really sitting down and talk. Walt and I get down. Walt starts figuring me out. He goes, "Oh my God, what's in that brain?" Okay. So that's what I was trying to be an example of. Okay. All right. So number one, listen. Number two, confront may be the wrong word, and I'll admit that. Don't let it fester. You want to cause a problem for your board, let it be a problem for a long period of time. Then you'll be censoring somebody. Okay. It will get ugly, and it will make the press. If you're any district at all, people are going to find out about it. Okay. Try to nip it in the bud. Try to get people on a fair. They don't, I as a chief didn't bother me that I had a 3-2 vote at times for something. I would visit with the people that didn't vote for it if I thought it was the right thing to do. I'd visit with them and go, "Hey, how can we help you understand why this was so important?" Sometimes they just said, "George, it's going to cost district money. I told you I'm not going to spend money." Okay, I can live with that. That doesn't mean it still wasn't the right thing to do. Does that make sense? That person's not being disruptive. Okay, they're voting their what? Conscience, their value. And you know what? Probably representing 35% to 40% of all my taxpayers. You know, they don't let their taxes go up, okay? Questions on my little, what I think is a tried and proven strategy? Come on, somebody beat me up. Thanks, Walt.
Don't take it personally.
Don't take it. Absolutely. Very good point. I should have that up. Well, maybe I do. Yeah, don't take it personal. I mean, huh? Sir, the Presbyterian is back up. You're welcome.
When you listen, it's very good also to reflect back to them what you hear.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. Absolutely. Yeah. Here's what I've used that term. Here's what I'm hearing, Kelly. Here's what I'm hearing. And they may go, oh, no, that's not exactly what I said, George. Okay, well, give me another shot. Thank you. All right. So what's a guide to positive board member relationships? Try to understand what's motivating people. The board members that you get along with, you seem to vote with, what's motivating them? You know, not just the ones that maybe you're struggling with, but what's the motivation? All right. My wife actually asked me that question once in a while when I currently serve on a credit union board. Credit unions are very similar to public bodies. You're elected by the members of the credit union, and it's a non-paying volunteer position. Okay, 9-member board, small. We're a small $350 million operation, but my wife asked me one day. She says, "Why do you keep serving on the credit union board?" I said, "Well, I get a free lunch once a month, and I really like the people, and we established policy that allows people to get loans that maybe couldn't get a loan someplace else. We tried to service the unserviceable. Okay, now we have to do that so that to other people too, so that they can help us pay for the people that can't. But anyway, it's a balance thing. It's a co-op, right? But I was driving to the meeting one day after she'd asked me that, and I thought, why do I do this? Well, because it's no different than you. Gives you a sense of value. It keeps your brain stimulated. You know, I know what there's quotas and right things that they talk about, and it was like when I first got involved in it, I thought, what are these people talking about? You know, what's liquidity? Oh, it's not water. Okay. But so it stimulates me, right? And hopefully you too. You get, hey, you know what's going on. But understand what motivates the person to be on your board. Remember that board members are people. They're just like you. They got other stresses in their lives. They got other things going on. They're just like you. They're just fellow board members. Maybe, I want to say this again, they may be Presbyterian. Okay, I mean, you know, they you don't know. I mean, he threw it out there. I'm going to run with that one for a while. All right. Communications. Communicate with them. How and when. How do they want to be communicated with? You know. And this is the bottom one. Understand what you can control. You may have that personal meeting. You may listen. You may repeat it. You may think you're there, and they just don't want it. I worked with a lieutenant back in the day that every time he got his annual evaluation, his supervisor would put on there, this guy has a bad attitude. Now I supervised his supervisor. So he came to me and he says, Chief, how can somebody comment about my attitude? My attitude is me. How can they tell me that my attitude is bad? I thought, well, it doesn't conform with how we look at it. But really, when I talked to him and worked with him and thought about it, who designs your attitude about something? You do. Okay? I can disagree and think it's a good attitude or a bad attitude that your face, turns down or turns up, but it's really you, right? It's really you. So I really can't control your attitude. I can only help you control what? Your reaction to it, how you act, and how you display yourself at a board meeting and how you conduct yourselves. We don't yell. We can debate, but we don't yell. We don't use foul language. Okay? We conduct ourselves in a business meeting. Uh-oh, I hit a note there. Huh? Yeah, it's something sensitive there.
If you go so far and you're like attacked in the meeting and you stand up, what do you
Exactly. That's a,
do? Just sit there and let them do it?
oh, no, well.
I mean, you tell them to get away from you and they just keep coming.
Yeah. Now, what she's describing is a hostile work environment. Okay. If that's going on in your board meeting where one board member is either doing that to staff or to another board member, that's not good board decorum. Okay. But that crosses the line. That crosses the line. She has when you're at a board meeting, are you in a work environment? Yeah, that's a work environment. Okay. The district now has a problem. That board member has created a what? Hostile work environment. Okay. Whether it's staff or board. So now you sit down with that individual, Mr. Board President, Mr. Board Chair, and say, well, buddy, you have stepped over the line. Who controls the board meeting? The chair, but it's really the who? The board, right? You can actually get to a position, and is there any attorneys in here? You can actually get to a position where you have people trespassing in your meeting. If they're not conducting themselves under the guidelines you've established to conduct that meeting, they can be declared trespassers. If you say, look, that case, hey, Joe, sit down, relax, another outburst like that, and we're going to ask you to leave. You can do that. You can do that. Okay. Now, am I recommending that? No, but I'm saying is that it is because you're protecting who? The district. The district. She gets confirmed by that too many times, and by God, if she happens to get touched, that's a tort claim just like that. I might even help her file it. Okay. And now who's getting sued? The district, except was that within the course and scope of that board member? Is pointing a finger at, touching another board member, swearing at, is that within their course and scope? They might have trouble defending that. Now, I'm not giving you a legal opinion, but I'd hate to be the one that had to try to defend that. Make sense? Now, is that the extreme? Do we want to have to go there? Heavens no, we don't want to do that. But that is in your toolbox, okay? You control that meeting. People can be declared trespassers. And we actually had a health district. I got a phone call from a health district one time. This has been many years ago. They said, hey, George, this meeting started at 7. It's 7:10, and people in here going crazy. And he held the phone, and I could hear the screaming and yelling going on. And I told him, I says, adjourn that meeting or recess it and call the county sheriff. Because they had a hostile environment, okay? And those people could have been declared, if they didn't calm down, they could have been declared trespassers. Now, God bless you if you ever have to do that. I mean, I don't want to ever have to, but that actually happened to a health district. And a health district. You're a health district? Oh my goodness, I got to start paying attention to health districts. All right, go.
Can there be a clause or language included in the bylaws of how to deal with a hostile situation like that?
Okay, what type of district are you? Just want to make sure.
Transit district.
Transportation, transit district. Can you have a policy that deals with a hostile environment? Is that what you're saying? In a board meeting?
To happen, and can there be included if there's a hostile situation?
Yes.
Then we do such and such.
Absolutely. Anybody here from Sisters Camp Sherman Fire District? Right here, right here. I believe, I'm not going to hold you on the spot. I believe Sisters Camp Sherman Fire District has a board policy that states how meetings will be conducted, decorum, and they actually post it on a wall. If you meet in this room, and you make it, you're out of here. Okay. So she's pretty new. I don't want to put her on the spot, but I believe they have that policy. So I know some of them do. Yes, ma'am. So this is something I should know. Thank you. Thank you for that. So did you hear what she said? She said she thinks SDO has a pamphlet policy on this. We probably do. I probably wrote it, but it's been a long time ago. I'm old now. All right. Who influences some of these board members? And even you board members that are, conducting yourselves appropriately, having good meetings. These are some of the things you get influenced by. You need to think about it. Who's doing that? Who out there is influencing that board member or you? What is influencing board members? Who is, what is? What was I thinking here? Oh, when you're talking, again, back to that discussion you have with an individual, or even with yourself, what are the things and who are the people that influence you? I can honestly tell you that when I was a board member, I bounced things off of neighbors. Hey, Joe, what do you think of this? We're thinking about painting our fire engines pink. What do you think? Here's the deal. Okay. Whatever the decision may have been, the question may have been. But when you're looking at a board member that may be a little disgruntled or maybe a little disruptive to your meetings, what's in the background? Who's back there? Okay. Are those people, and hopefully none of you people are they accepting other people's monkeys? What do I mean by that? Ken Brown over there, well known in this community, is a board member on a fire district. Ken Brown goes into the local grocery store and they go, hey, Ken, how are you? Good to see you. Hey, Ken, I've got this problem with the fire district. Da-da-da-da-da-da-da. And Ken goes, oh man, that's a big deal. Ken didn't know anything about that until he went to the store. Ken takes it to the board. What did he do? He took somebody else's problem, put it on his own back. Instead of saying, well, gee, sorry to hear about that. Have you talked to our chief? Or have you talked to blank? Right? That's what you would do, Ken, wouldn't you? Say yes. Okay. You see what I mean? See the difference? That's the difference, not accept something. Now, do you put that in the back of your brain? Do you maybe give Mike, if you're a 911 district, do you maybe go into Mike and say, hey, Mike, ran into George the other day in the store. He's all fired up about this. Yeah, Mike may say, yeah, I'm aware of that. I'm working on it. Or, gee, no, thanks for the heads up. Doesn't mean fix it, Mike. I'm not carrying the monkey. Makes that make sense? But I'm giving him a heads up. Remember that communication thing? No secrets. Okay. Focus with people that are disruptive on your board. Focus on the big picture. You as a board, establish a business plan. If you don't have a strategic or a business plan for your district, get on it. Have goals and objectives for your district. Work with your staff to do that. Then you can get those disruptive board members to focus on what? What's important to the district? What have you agreed on that you're going to focus on? We're not going to focus on that George wants a hydrant in front of his house. We're going to focus on having hydrants strategically placed in strategic locations around our district, or whatever that goal may be. Make sense? Rise above the problem of the day, of just the day problem. Rise above that. Have a vision for your district, okay? Together as a board, accomplish something. What do I mean by that? Together as a board, you're trying to manage your board members, but together as a board, agree on something. Find something you can agree on and start there. Make sense? Maybe tackling the color of the fire engines is too big a task, but what we're going to buy our gasoline isn't. So we're going to agree on that. Does that make sense? What I'm trying to say? Help. I've learned this down in Sutherland, and when I was working with an improvement district down there, they had a board member that was kind of one of those people that if you voted yes, he was going to vote no. Just kind of principle thing. And I worked with them. I'm saying, find something that you can get that person to vote with you on, whether it's yes or no. Okay, but they can agree, and use that as what? The starting point. Okay, and then build from there. And you'd be surprised how that may work. All right. Your elected officials, now I apologize to the staff. Maybe this applies to you, but staff members in here, but you elected officials, here's some tips that I found and I thought were really good. When you run for a board and you get on a board, understand what you're getting into. Know in advance that you just can't go in there and make changes. What in the heck are you getting into? Understand what your roles and responsibilities are. If it's a fire district, it's not your responsibility to put the wet stuff on the red stuff. It's your responsibility to have a policy in place so they can effectively do it, okay? but it's not your responsibility to do it. Do your homework on the district. Familiarize yourself. And again, when you're talking to those disgruntled board members or those ones that are a little bit disruptive, do they really understand how the district operates? Maybe they don't. Some of you attended Dan Olson's class earlier. He did a thing in there on onboarding. I can't emphasize enough. When you get a new board member, when you get somebody running for your board, reach out to them. If you're one of the board members that's going to be there, May of this year. Some of you are not running because your term doesn't expire till 2025. People are running. Maybe you've got a vacancy. Get out and meet those people. Make sure they understand what the heck they're running for. Nip it in the bud before it ever gets in the front door. So that they really understand. And if they confront you and say, well, I don't trust you, well, then work on that trust. Work on it. Okay. Ask questions. Be careful. Be careful. And I mean this to all board members. Be careful you are not over-influenced by the caves as citizens against virtually everything. Okay. They're out there. Okay. Or the bananas. Build absolutely nothing near anything. I've actually got that going on in my neighborhood right now. I didn't realize what you can do with photographs, how you can doctor them to look, you want the way them to look. I can actually have hair. We've got a development that they want to put in below my home a few blocks, and it's in part of the property is in a floodplain. And this developer said, yeah, we're not going to build there. We're going to build here. So now on social media, you see this area, a beautiful area, you see it flooded with whales jumping in it. I can tell you, I've lived in that town for over 50 years. I've never seen that flooded like that, okay? That doesn't mean it couldn't happen, but I've never seen that. But anyway, on social media, they've got a historic picture of it, okay? Do not be afraid to say, I don't know. You may work with a fellow board member and they may confront you with a question and you don't know the answer. That's okay, okay? But get them with somebody that can. And if you don't know the answer, you may want to join them, okay, to find out what that answer is. Some of our districts, we do some crazy things. We look out there and we go, why did we do that? I work with you all the time. And sometimes I look at my local districts and go, what? We're doing what? But then instead of beating them up, what do? I give Kelly a call, or I say, Kelly, can we go to lunch? Can we go to breakfast? Can you explain to me why we're flying drones in the city of Portland? Okay. It was really cool why they were doing that. Once I learned about it. But when I first saw it, I thought, what in the heck is Scappoose Fire District doing in downtown Portland? Anybody know the answer to that? They're one of the only fully FCC, ACC, TCC, what's it called? FAA, thank you. It's one of those, yeah, that one. That can fly drones in an area where there's commercial aircraft. And they go in there and fly a full of fire for Portland. Pretty slick. My little community. Okay? All right, survival tips. I want you all to, I don't want any of you walking down this class going home and going, I'm not going to serve on the board anymore. That uncle's crazy, told me this, and I'm not going to do this. I don't want you to do that, okay? So here's some survival tips for you. Draw a line. Personal attacks are not acceptable. Draw a line. You got a disgruntled board member, a board member is not functioning very well, draw a line with them. Be blunt in public, in your meeting. Hey, that's not acceptable to me. Knock it off, okay? Nothing wrong with that. Now, don't continue it. Don't get into your board should set goals. Have goals for your organization that you can focus on as a board so you're not focusing on somebody's pet peeve, okay? Try not to reinvent the wheel. Try not to do that. Don't let somebody come in and go, we just got to do this differently. Now, if there's a reason and you work with your staff and you go back and look at something, maybe you do. But communicate. You as individual board members, you as individual staff members, live up to your official responsibilities. Don't not do what you're supposed to do, okay? You take responsibility yourselves. You hold yourself accountable. Consult with and follow your district legal counsel. When you're dealing with some of these people that it's just flat disruptive and it's not going very well and you're worried about them, a suit coming against your district, get your legal counsel involved, your districts, and or SDAO. I mean, you can give Spencer a call, me, I'm going to refer you to an attorney if it's gone too far, but get your counsel involved. I can't tell you that controversy is not inevitable. You will have controversy on your board. That's okay if it's good, clean dialogue. It's okay with having a different opinion on something. I mean, it must be. I've been married almost 50 years. Okay, so she doesn't agree with everything, but I do. I figured it out. Sorry. Just the way it is. Try to have fun. Hopefully, I try to do this presentation, another presentation, so you can have a little fun and you can learn something. My goal for you this afternoon, I'm just doing mornings, is you to get some kind of nugget out of what we talked about. I don't have all the answers on how to bring every board member into line, but I do have some tips that may help you get there. And one of them is just being bluntly honest. And being willing to accept responsibility that I have some responsibility of this board to help make it better. If that means I got to sit down with a fellow board member buying coffee or buy him a beer, I'll do that. Okay. But I have a little fun doing it. All right. I have a question.
How does a board member familiarize themselves with district operations?
That's a great question. How does a board member familiarize themselves with district operations? Don, if I may pick on you again. You're a board member. You have the right to call Don. He's your general manager. Don, I'm a little in the dark about how we do things. Can I arrange a tour? Can I arrange to meet with somebody? And Don's probably going to say, sure, for this particular thing you're concerned about, in 2 weeks, Joe will be available or Sally will be available to help you with that. Oh, come on down. I'll take you out. There's nothing wrong with that. Now, if you're doing it for the reason you're in the transportation district and you want to go ride every bus because you don't think the bus lines are perfect because they don't go by your house, no, that's not right. But to understand why the bus lines go where they may, to have that presented to you, absolutely. Okay, what's that? Right. Absolutely. Onboard them, new board members. All right, one more. Uh-oh. Did you hear that? She looked in our reference library and it's there. I wish Shannon would keep me informed about this stuff. Golly sakes. Hey, how about that? I got the questions right at 3 o'clock. Yes, ma'am. Okay, is there a board policy out there that says if you miss 3 meetings in a row, you can be terminated as a board member? Okay, let me, this is, I wrote this thing, okay? Can you remove a board member from office because they've just missed meetings? In the majority of our district, the answer is no, okay? But can you have a policy that the board adopts that says, failure to attend 4 meetings without an excuse is going to be considered a voluntary resignation? You bet you can have that policy. There's no law against having that policy. It has no weight in court. Okay? It has no weight. I want to say that again. No weight in court. As a peer group, you can agree to that. And I can go, crap, I can't make meetings. They're going to kick me out. Well, they're not kicking me off. I'm actually resigning. And if I never contest it, onward. Okay. Now I could give you another 15-minute explanation, but yes, you can have a policy. No, it has no weight. And the board member can go back and demand that spot back, and the court will probably give it to them if it's during their term. Whew, how'd I do? All right. Did this go well? Is this kind of, we got something out of it? All right.